In our previous videos, we mentioned that combinatorial innovation creates resilience, and it also increases the likelihood of breakthrough discoveries. Another advantage of combinatorial innovation is it maximizes resource utility. I'm sure we have all learned about the concept of symbiotic mutualism in school. It basically describes the long-term mutually beneficial interaction between two different biological organisms. One of the most classic examples often used is the clownfish and the sea anemone. The clownfish feeds on the small invertebrates that otherwise have potential to harm the sea anemone, and the waste from the clownfish provides nutrients to the sea anemone. The clownfish is additionally protected from predators by the sea anemone's stinging cells, to which the clownfish, interestingly, is immune to. The clownfish also emits a high-pitched sound that deters the butterfly fish, which would otherwise eat the anemone. You might have heard of this one too, the Nile crocodile and the Egyptian plover. The plover bird flies inside the crocodile's mouth, which seems like a ridiculously dangerous thing to do. However, the plover bird is actually eating the meat stuck between the crocodile's teeth. The crocodile benefits from this as the food stuck in his mouth can cause infection. Therefore, whenever a crocodile needs his mouth clean, he will open it and wait for the plover bird's help. Another one. Some tropical plants have a mutualistic symbiotic relationship with the hummingbird. The hummingbirds get access to the plant's nectar, while the plant benefits by pollination. Now, remember we said combinatorial innovation maximizes resource utility, not maximizing the resource itself. There's a reason for that. It seems like most of the time, the amount of resources is not the issue. The issue is our ability to utilize the resources around us. We learned this from our friends, the sea anemone and the clownfish. Assuming that resource is not an issue, as with all population growth, it tends to curve upwards in a hockey stick manner. But what do you think happens after a while? The population size plateaus off. This tends to be the case for almost all population growth. This limit is called the carrying capacity of the species, which is the limit of the species to extract further resources due to capability constraints. What's interesting is, with mutualism, the carrying capacity for both species increases compared to either species alone, hence increasing the population size for both species. Just to assure you that this is scientific, there's actually a formula to it. We won't be talking about the Lotka-Volterra model here, but feel free to look it up if you're interested. Now you may say that this is something that only occurs in nature, but do we have an example in the real business world? Definitely. Coke and McDonald's is probably one of the best examples. The two companies have been growing together since 1955, often leveraging on each other's office space when they open up new markets. McDonald's is so important to Coke that it's the only customer with its own dedicated division. Now you may be wondering why we have spoken so much about symbiotic mutualism and combinatorial innovation. Remember that we are strong proponents of multi-sector partnerships, looking at how we can co-create innovation simply by assembling existing resources in new ways. Symbiotic mutualism seems to give us a bit of clue on how we can possibly engineer such partnerships. In symbiotic mutualism, there are only two things that are being exchanged. You either exchange a service or a resource. Let's see if we can map this to a partnership model. If we list out the conventional types of services and resources that tends to be exchanged in a partnership, it can look something like this. Now in all partnerships, it is very tempting to jump straight in to talk about who will be forking out the money up front, and if that's not possible, the second best option would be gifts in kind, usually in the form of products. The reason why we advise against that is, it tends to lock up our minds into a transaction. You give me the money, I deliver you something else. When we talk about partnerships, we need to broaden our playing field in order to think outside of the box a little. We covered this in our previous video about borrowing concepts across other domains. So we force ourselves to think outside of the box. That's where we open up the possibilities of new services and resources that can be exchanged. We will cite some tangible examples in the next video.